You don't speak Spanish or no hablas inglés? No problem. We have included subtitles for English, Spanish, Portuguese and French.
And a lot of people ask me about my name because it's a Jewish name, Segal. Because I spent 7 years in Berlin, 4 years in Paris. I found castle that my family owned and I started to write a book on the Jewish identity. I published almost 600 articles on my blog. So I was doing the Q&As with the filmmakers, with the directors and actors and so on. Two sons were arrested by the Gestapo.
Hello Jerome, and welcome to Getting to Know Humanity. First of all, we're going to start with a little lightning round. Introvert or extrovert?
Rather extrovert.
Sex or chocolate?
Sex.
Cat or dog?
Cat.
Big city or small town life?
Big city.
Friends with benefits or stable relationship?
Stable relationship.
Hawaii or Alaska?
Hawaii.
Backpacking or hotel?
Hotel.
And the last one, living forever or being able to teleport yourself?
Being able to teleport myself.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for the lightning round. Now, can you introduce yourself really quick about yourself?
So my name is Jerome Segal. I was born to a Jewish family, but my parents didn't act Jewish at all. They were atheist, didn't believe in God. At some point, they were even Christian for a couple of years, but they never turned into the Jewish religion. But still, they told us that we were Jewish, even if they didn't attach a big importance to this fact. In the 1990s, I went to Berlin for my civil service. Then I was a bit confronted to the history of the Second World War, being in Berlin, of course. And a lot of people asked me about my name because it's a Jewish name, Segal. I started to question myself about what does it mean being Jewish. I started to read and think about this. And then when I came to Vienna, because I spent 7 years in Berlin, 4 years in Paris, and when I was 32, I moved to Vienna to work at the French embassy. There in Vienna, I went to the archives and I discovered a lot of things about my family history. I found cool notes, I found castle that my family owned, and I started to write a book on the Jewish identity. It's called Atheist and Jewish, the fecundity of an apparent paradox, because for many people, if you are atheist and Jewish, they don't get it, because they say, well, if you're Jewish, you cannot not believe in God. This is a book I wrote, which was very important for me. It was translated into German. This is how I connected to my family history, and for me, living in Vienna now is also proving that Hitler got it wrong, because there are still Jewish people in Austria.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. How come you started investigating in the first place about your family history? Like, did you obviously knew that your family was from Vienna, but...
Yes, in my family, my grandfather just told his family that the family was from Vienna, that he lived in Vienna, even if he was born in Galicia, which is a province of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which today is shared between Poland and the Ukraine. And the family moved during the First World War, so my grandfather was like 5 years old, 1916, when the family moved to Vienna. And we all knew in the family that our grandfather lived in Vienna, but nothing more.
Oh, very interesting. Okay, cool. Do you still remember how I read that your grandfather owned a huge castle here in Vienna. Do you remember how you felt when you read that in the archives?
There was a story in my family about Schwadorf, which is a city very close to the Vienna International Airport, so like 20-30 kilometers from the center of Vienna. We knew that the family was living there, but I've never been there, and so when I saw in the archives that my grandfather owned this castle, I went there. It was very moving, because my family lost everything in 1938. They had to leave very quickly. My great-grandfather and one of his two sons were arrested by the Gestapo, and later on they could leave the country, but leaving all their wealth. So when I was there, I met the son of the couple who bought the castle in 1955. The region around Vienna was occupied by the Soviets, and everything was kept by the Soviet power, and only when the Austrian Republic was inaugurated again in 1955, the castle was given back to my family, but it was almost a ruin, and my family didn't want to go back to Austria for obvious reasons.
Okay, great. You're also you're currently working as a professor, and you have had very different professions or very different direct in which you work. Can you give a little overview, or can you tell a bit?
Yes, and I started to work in prison when I was a student, and there was an association of students going every week to see inmates and help them with different issues. If they want to write letters or if they want to study, to help them. And this is when I started to think to myself that I want to do my part in the society for a better future. And so this was 3 years, and then I thought that my job would be more in contact with the society, with social issues. So I finished my engineering school, but just because of the name of this school, and this allowed me to go in the field of history and to start directly at the master level. And then I wrote my PhD, and I became a historian of science. This is my official position at the university, but I changed again for social history, and now I am more like an essay writer. I wrote a couple of books on animal rights. I wrote also on Roma issues, the problems gypsies, as they are sometimes called, have in Europe. So I try to have an influence on the society with my writings and also with some kind of activism.
When you said that you studied something which wasn't really your interest, like was there another option, or how did you feel when you studied something which was not?
I liked math. I wanted to become a math teacher. It was at the beginning when I was at high school. And when I was studying for this so-called grande école, this where you have to work a lot. And so I was a bit disgusted because I studied too much mathematics. And when you are 18, 19, 20, I think it's not the best thing to do, to work like 65 to 70 hours per week on math problems. And so when I arrived in this engineering school, I knew that it would open me many gates for other interests. And I started with history of science, because history is social sciences, human sciences, and it's more connected to the society. And then I moved to social history and sociology.
Okay, great. Would you say you're more of a researcher or more of a teacher, or both in the middle?
No, I am much more a researcher. My teaching, it's maybe 10 to 20% of my activity, and most of the time I am here at my desk, reading, writing, preparing conferences, writing books, articles. I am a researcher.
All right, great. What's the most gratifying thing for you to be a researcher? Or
What I like is having the impression that I have a word to say for the general audience. Last year, for instance, my book Animal Radical was published in France, and Libération had a 2 pages interview with me. Libération is one of the most important newspaper, middle left in France, and this is nice, being a researcher, to have the opportunity to address a very large audience and to try, in this case, to have the French population thinking about the way they deal with animals, if it's good or not to eat them, and to how we treat them. And so this was good.
Because of being Jewish, have you ever had any, apart from that boss which you mentioned at the embassy, have you ever had any other conflicts or any problems, like people who treat you different?
I had one experience of anti-Semitism. It was because I always follow what the French embassy is doing in Vienna, and someday they said we organize a film festival. So I was very happy, because I worked myself as a programmer of the Vienna Jewish Film Festival. So a festival for me is like a party. You know, you meet people, you have talks, you have a filmmaker, people coming, actors, and you can interview them, speak with them, and so it's very interesting. And this festival that they were announcing, it was an online festival, and it was just that if you paid €30, you could watch 10 films with a streaming right. And so I was very upset that they called this a festival, and I wrote a paper on my blog, because in the last 13 years I published almost 600 articles on my blog. So most of the time they deal with the Austrian society, and I write French researcher living in Vienna and writing mostly in French about what's happening there, the Austrian culture, the Austrian politics, and also the problems Austria has with its past, with this Nazi legacy. And in this case I wrote a paper on the French Institute, the French embassy, calling this a festival. And then then on the next day there was a premiere at the French Institute, and I went there, and one French guy came to me and said, yes, you bastard Jew, you always criticize, and this is typically Jewish, that you're not happy with what is organizing and you are criticizing everything. This is a very Jewish attitude. So, and it was for the first time of my life that, I mean, it didn't beat me also, but I was very astonished about the way he was reacting, because for me it had nothing to do with being Jewish.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I understand. Oh, what's your relationship like? Do you still speak Hebrew, or
no one in my family ever spoke Hebrew.
All right. Have you ever visited Israel?
Yes, and in Israel it was like love at the first sight.
Mm-hmm.
I was captivated by the country. 2 months before, I ran a marathon in Pisa, and it was a small marathon, and I was maybe among the 100 first runners when I arrived, because there were not so many runners. And for the last 10 years, I don't remember, maybe I went 7, 8 times.
Your career is already quite progressed at the university, writing articles. Do you have any recommendations for young people who are watching this video for their career?
No, unfortunately, it's very difficult to get a position at the university.
All right. Have you ever thought about like moving to Israel?
No, never. I mean, Israel is a great country.
Mm-hmm.
You have a huge diversity of the people there.
Mm-hmm.
You can, within one day, be in the mountains, and then in the desert, and then to the beach, and so it's a wonderful country, but it's very difficult to live there. You have to earn a lot of money. If you are a teacher, you are almost like a good position at the university. There is a possibility for me to spend a couple of years in Israel. I could consider this, but not because I'm Jewish.
Yeah, all right, cool, interesting.
Thank you very much for watching this video. We hope you enjoyed it. If you want to see more videos like that, please subscribe to the channel by clicking on the logo.